I think we're living inside of 2 billion Truman shows where, Truman Show, you wake up and everything is sort of coordinated just for you and you usually don't even realize it. But it's coordinating just to entertain you or just to engage you.
That's Tristan Harris. He worked as Google's design ethicist, and now he runs a nonprofit initiative called Time Well Spent, advocating for awareness of how tech companies profit off of users' attention. When push notifications were first introduced for email on BlackBerrys in 2003, they were actually seen as a way for you to check your phone less. You could easily see emails as they came in, so you didn't have to repeatedly open your phone to refresh an inbox. But today you can get notifications from any app on your phone. So every time you check it, you get this grab bag of notifications that can make you feel a broad variety of emotions.
If it wasn't random, if it was predictably bad or predictably good, then you would not get addicted. The predictability would take out the addictiveness.
That's the same logic behind slot machines. And it's effective. Slot machines make more money in the US than baseball, movies, and theme parks combined. And they become addicting about 3 to 4 times faster than other kinds of gambling. Some apps even replicate the process of pulling a slot machine lever with the pull to refresh feature. That's a conscious design choice. Those apps are usually capable of continuously updating content, but the pull action provides an addicting illusion of control over that process.
A couple months ago, I was standing in front of 500 middle schoolers, and I handed them a no card. And I said, fill in the following question. One thing my parents don't know about social media is what? And I would like to share a couple of their responses. It's just a fun way to talk to my friends. One thing my parents don't know about social media is that no one really cares about anything. One thing my parents don't know about social media is how much I love it and I hate it at the same time. One thing my parents don't know is that they're blocked. And I love this one. One thing my parents don't know is how fake it is. Truthfully, I've never really struggled with the fakeness of Instagram, but my mom sure does. The responses were not so positive. The majority of them, sadly, were actually a lot more grim. One thing my parents don't know about social media is how addictive and how awful it is. One thing my parents don't know is that it makes me very, very, very insecure. Social media makes me sad and depressed. It puts pressure on me to be perfect. It nearly ended my life. Today in our country and across the globe, we are seeing an epidemic rise in the levels of anxiety and depression and suicidality among our teenagers. Right here in the state of Utah, in just the last 7 years, our suicide rate among kids aged 10 to 17 has jumped 141%. And not 30 minutes from where we're standing right now, last school year, in the affluent community of Harriman, Utah, at one school, 8 kids took their life. I want to share with you a message I got from a couple ER docs. One was here in Salt Lake, one in Oregon. The one in Oregon said, Colin, every pediatric suicide attempt and completion, the kids will attribute to one of 2 things. Number 1, my parent took my phone. Number 2, cyberbullying on social media. He said, we recently had a girl, a suicide completion, who overdosed on over-the-counter medication simply because dad took her phone. She was 11. An ER doc in Salt Lake told me this. He said, we recently had a girl, a suicide attempt, because she found out, her parents said, you're going to summer camp for a month, kayaking and fishing and hiking with a bunch of teenagers for a whole month. And you can't bring your phone, by the way. And when she heard that, with no mental health history, she lashed out, slashed her wrist and her thighs, and she needed 27 stitches. And the doctor said, Colin, we were only semi-shocked. We see this every day. Experts say that handing a smartphone with social media and untethered access to these apps with no training or guidance is like handing them the keys to a car with no driver's ed. So how do we sit here in shock wondering why kids are crashing and burning every single day? I'm going to share this message right here. The best friend of the 8th victim at Harriman sent me this the day after he died. She said, Colin, we're not 100% sure as to why he chose to end his life at such a young age, but I know for a fact, 100%, that social media had something to do with it. I hate that social media does this to us. People, including myself, need to make sure that what we're sharing promotes positivity and not toxic perfectionism. Dr. Jean Twenge wrote a book called iGen, where she studied thousands of teenagers and the effect that screen time and social media have on their mental health. And she said this, she said, we are on the verge of the greatest public health crisis this generation has ever seen. That was 2 years ago. We are no longer verging. The verge is here. I'd like to share one more message from a teenage girl. She said, Colin, I got a phone when I was 11 and got social media right then. How crazy is that? Everything evil was at my fingertips. Accounts on my feed that promoted pornography, self-harm, anorexia. It destroyed me. I was hooked. She said, I wish my parents would have monitored me so they could have saved me from this darkness. I dealt with suicide attempts, anxiety, depression, anorexia, all because of social media. It took away my innocence. It taught me to hate who I am today. Smartphones and social media, when we hand them to our kids, it is literally stealing their joy. It's robbing them from the ability to create and feel real connection. Instead of dealing with their emotions and their feelings head on, kids are just scrolling their phones to numb their pain and their feelings, which is robbing them of resiliency. Spending time on platforms like Instagram and Snapchat when you're 13 just teach you that you'll never be enough. You'll never be skinny enough or pretty enough or good enough.
This is an altogether terrible system for expressing ideas, but generally I don't notice it because I grew up speaking English and its labyrinthine usage seems completely normal to me. I only notice preposition choice when it feels wrong to me. Like, one that's always bothered me is on the phone. Why do we say on the phone to mean not that we're standing on our phones, but that we're using them? On the phone used to mean participating in a phone call, but these days there are all sorts of ways to be on your phone. You can be texting on your phone, or looking at Instagram on your phone, or playing Fortnite on your phone, or whatever. But I would argue that no matter what you're doing on your phone, you're not really on the phone. You're in the phone. When I'm using my phone, I'm not really in whatever physical space I happen to be occupying, and I'm not really with whatever physical people I'm near. I'm in the phone with people who are also in their phones. And when I exit my phone and enter physical space, it doesn't feel like I'm getting off my phone. It feels like I'm getting out of it. And this was the case for me long before my phone contained so many distractions and delights and horrors. Like, when I was a kid and I would talk on the phone to friends, I always felt like I was not in my house or in my room, but I was in some disembodied space with the person I was talking to. But now, because there's so much more to do in my phone, and also because there's so many more people in that disembodied space, being in my phone feels thrilling and terrifying and overwhelming, and most of all, weird.
This 24/7 constant access to peer culture is opening up a door and a wave of cyberbullying and social anxiety that we have never seen. And kids today are choosing to self-harm as a coping mechanism and as a way to get attention more than we've ever seen before. Just last week in the UK, they released a study that said that 1 out of 4 children age 14 are self-harming, citing pressure from social media to be perfect as the cause. And a pediatrician right here in Utah, he said, Colin, 10 years ago, our typical day was treating kids who had tonsillitis and flus and colds and fevers. But now, me and all of my peers, we've had to hire full-time social workers and psychiatrists to work on site because we cannot keep up with this epidemic. And of course, cyberbullying has become a huge crisis. Our kids' entire self-worth at 13 is determined by virtual, unpredictable feedback. The validation that we all crave to them is only available in this synthetic way. Their social standing and their self-esteem is determined by a like on an Instagram photo. And one mistake, one tiny gaffe that we all made as 13-year-olds every day, that when we were kids was forgotten in an hour, is now publicly housed on the school Snapchat page. When you're 13 today, there is no place to run. There's no escape. And it is soul-crushing. We have got to put on the brakes and ask some tough questions. But the answer of how do we save these kids is that we can't until we first save ourselves. We as adults and as parents, we have to break free from our screen dependency and our social media addiction. We have to start modeling healthy digital behavior for our kids who don't hear us, they see us. We have to teach them from our example that our worth, that our self-esteem doesn't depend on likes on a photo. We have to teach them from our example that it's okay to show the world that we're not okay, that we all feel alone and inadequate, that sometimes the day just sucks. And we can share that, even though social media has taught us not to. We have to be more aware of how our digital behavior is affecting our kids. I want to share one more message from a 13-year-old girl. She said, Colin, I grew up with the typical good parents. They gave me everything I needed physically. But now that I'm a teenager, I have never felt more distant. And it's not because of me, who you'd think is a teenager. It's because I can't get my mom and dad off their stupid phone. I can't get them to get off Facebook and Instagram to ask me about my day or talk to me about my feelings. I've never felt more unloved and uncared for, all because of a stupid phone. 8 months ago, one of my 4 kids, or crypods as I call them, my 10-year-old was really struggling. She was acting defiance all the time, and at home she was just mad, and I didn't know why. And the confusing part is we went to parent-teacher conference, and the teacher said, your daughter is a total angel. She's the best child in class. In fact, I'm going to give her an award for the most helpful students. My wife and I looked at ourselves, we're like, do you have 2 Quincy's? One day after work, I came home, and she was yelling at her sister, hitting her brother, yelling at her mom. She's 10. She went into the bedroom and slammed the door, and I lost it. I walk into the room, and I go, what is wrong? Why are you so mad? Why are you doing such good things at school, but you're making such bad choices at home? And this little precious human being looked at me, and with tears in her eyes, she said, why do you love your phone more than you love me? That was the only wake-up call I needed. I set a rule for myself right there, that from that point on, my kids would never see me on a phone, ever. If we went to a t-ball game or we went to a dance recital, they would see my eyes at them, not looking down at a screen. I even went and bought one of these. Have you guys seen these? Do you know what this is? Oh, gosh. You can make a call, you can end a call, you can do that. There's so much functionality. And I take it with me when I go home, so there's literally no distractions. When I get home from work now, instead of pulling out my phone and sitting on the couch and scrolling the endless void of Twitter or checking emails, I put my phone in a drawer. I grab that little tiny human, I sit her on my lap, and I ask her, how was your day? And as she's telling me, I try my best to not even blink. One thing amazing happened when I did this. All of the defiance and the anger stopped right then, because she felt love and connection. I realized at that moment that when I had my phone out in front of my kids, she didn't know that I was answering emails to make money so she could go to dance, right? She didn't know that I was talking to clients so we could go to Disneyland one day. She didn't know that I was crushing virtual candy. The only thing she saw was when this was out in front of her, is that means more to my dad than I do. Kids today are amazing. I talk to thousands every month, and they're incredible. They are resilient. They are bright. They are savvy. They are tolerant. But they are growing up in a world that is muckier and scarier than any of us could ever imagine. And they need now, more than ever, from you and me, to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. And if they don't get that from home, because our eyes are down here, they can get a pretty good synthetic version of that on their screen. So, for the people who are saying, when is the appropriate age to give little Johnny a cell phone? When do I give Johnny a smartphone? My reply is always, when are you okay with him to start looking at pornography? When should I get little Katie an Instagram account? My reply is, when are you okay with her to start feeling anxiety and question her self-worth? Because the minute we hand our kids these devices is the time they stop being a kid. So for the parents out there who feel stuck, who feel like your son or daughter is too far gone down this rabbit hole, let me offer some hope. In February, I got a message from a mom. Oh, there's my daughter. Let me just say this. Instantly, everything changed. We went from defiant daughter and disengaged daddy to best friends. This mom sent me this message. She said, Colin, we had to take our daughter to the ER because she was suicidal and she's now in a mental health facility. This is a parent's biggest nightmare. I 100% know it's because of Instagram, Snapchat, text messaging, and social media. That's why we're here. She struggled with anxiety and depression since 7th grade, oddly enough, when we gave her a smartphone. I waited 2 months, and when she got back to me, I said, what happened? She said, all we did was we took her off social media. That's it. This is what happened. She said she ended all of her toxic relationships on her own. She tells me she loves me all the time. She says she's happy all the time. Her future goals have changed. She's not anxious to move out. Her grades have improved. She has more confidence. She looks and acts differently. She's even taken responsibility. She is 17. It is never too late to step up and be a parent. So the answer, how do we save the kids from this screen-induced public health crisis they're in, is that we have to first save ourselves and reconnect